You're watching E.T.N. Share and subscribe.
Hey guys, welcome to Entertainment Talk Nation. This is Rob. This video is this week's Fringe entertainment video. And in this one, we're going to discuss the 5 most famous UFO sightings. This came requested by Alan Mullins, aka Murphy Babs on The Nation. So we're going to go over this list now, just so you know. Not all these UFO sightings are considered 100% legitimate, while some of them lean to have more weight to them than the others. But nonetheless, there are 5 very interesting sightings. Here we go. Number 5, the Battle for Los Angeles. On February 24th, 1942, many people witnessed something floating in the sky of Los Angeles. Some people reported seeing one object, while others reported seeing multiple objects in the sky. Now, during this time, a lot of people were on edge that lived in the West Coast, because this was happening shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor. Now, on the evening of this date, Naval Intelligence issued a citywide blackout and warned people that they believed there was going to be an imminent attack. At 2:25 a.m. on the 25th, air raid sirens began going off, even though there was no fire coming from the sky. Then at 3:16 a.m., United States started opening fire on this floating object in the sky, which only had floodlights shining on it. At 4:14 a.m., the firing ceased. And 2 hours later, at around 7:21 a.m., the blackout was lifted. Now, 5 deaths were reported during this whole event. 3 of those deaths were due to stress of the events going on, so these people died by heart attack. And there were 2 car accidents during the event from obviously people in hysterics with the gunfire going off. Now, to this day, Japan 100% denies ever making any attempt to attack on the western coast. And Naval Intelligence the next day reported that it was a false alarm and that the firing was due to the anxiety that was built up from the attack on Pearl Harbor. Interestingly enough, the photo that was taken of the object in the sky was released in the paper the next day, but people who claimed to have seen it live said the photo was very contradictory to what they saw. Many years later, it was confirmed that the photo that was released in the paper the next day was actually modified. So what do you think? Look up the Battle of Los Angeles. It's a pretty interesting mass UFO sighting. There's still no concrete evidence that it was a UFO, but at the same time, the United States was firing at something, and it wasn't another country. Number 4, the Roswell incident. In 1947, and we all know this story, witnesses in Roswell, Mexico, claimed to have seen a UFO crash, and shortly thereafter, the US government claimed that it was actually a weather balloon that crashed and not a flying saucer. Now, to this day, the incident is highly debunked. In fact, the fact that it's still even famous is pretty interesting. So why are we covering it in this topic? Well, as I said earlier in the video, all these sightings are very famous, but the evidence behind some of them are a little questionable. And this is nonetheless the most famous sighting to date. It's still talked about. There's still people who believe that something crash landed and it wasn't a weather balloon. Throughout the years, always new information being released, and even some people who claim to have worked at Area 51 confessing on their deathbed that it was indeed a UFO that crashed. There was even one story that was released saying that the crash was actually a Soviet Union craft that was meant to invade the United States and just cause some hysteria, this one plane or ship or craft or whatever it was. The story behind this is that in the craft were actually guinea pig children, and these children had like deformities at birth, bigger eyes than normal, some body parts deformed, and they believe that this is what people might have mistaken for aliens. Whatever you believe, either direction you lean towards, the fact of the matter is that this still remains one of the most famous or infamous UFO sightings ever, and to this day it's still discussed, it's still being debunked, as well as counter testimonies being released. So in the end of the day, you have to kind of take in all this information and decide whether or not you want to believe whether or not it was a UFO or a weather balloon. Number 3, Rendlesham Forest Incident. In December of 1980, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Holt reported seeing a UFO. And this incident is one of the most famous and some believe the most credible UFO sighting based on the testimony. So what has people so convinced about this one sighting? Well, the lieutenant colonel was actually giving a live account of what he was seeing. It was over the radio and the audio was recorded. So some people believe that maybe he did see something. He also made a memo describing his account that night. However, sometime after the event occurred, several colleagues that were with Charles Holt that night began to deny ever seeing anything. And suddenly he was kind of singled out. He was the only one who reported seeing this, while the other colleagues that were with him denied it 100%. Now, Holt has gone on to say consistently throughout the years that this was a conspiracy by both the United States and the Ministry of Defense to keep it hush, and that he turned out to look like the crazy person when his colleagues were all reporting against what he saw that night. But to this day, he still swears by what he saw. What's even more interesting about this is that even skeptics who actually believe Lieutenant Colonel Holt's colleagues and their testimony regarding that night, they still find it very interesting that Lieutenant Holt was able to give a live account without a hiccup. In other words, there was no stuttering. He sounded scared, yes, but it didn't sound like he was incoherent. It didn't sound like he was reading a script. It sounded very sincere and natural. And that's the interesting part of this. Number 2, USS Nimitz incident. In November of 2004, 6 pilots of US Super Hornets reported seeing a UFO, and it was making some incredible maneuvers and breakneck speeds. Now in 2017, and some of you might recall this footage was released to the public. It was shown on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and some national networks as the best evidence to ever follow up a UFO sighting. Nobody had ever seen something like this in mass audiences. I mean, we've seen stuff on the internet, right? But that's always questionable. But this was legitimate. People who are experts at decrypting videos and going through footage could not find any reason as to why this would be fake. Defense security and writer Kyle Mizukami said that it could only be one of 3 things: equipment malfunction, secret government project, or extraterrestrial. If you have a moment, I suggest you look up the footage and basically make a decision for yourself. As far as I can remember from the stories that were reported when this footage was shown to the public, the malfunction on the equipment really wasn't there. Secret government project? Very likely. Extraterrestrial? Slim to none, but there's always a chance, right? Number 1, the Phoenix Lights. Now, thousands of people can't be wrong, right? I mean, this is one of the most famous sightings of all time, and one of my personal favorites. In what is considered the hotbed for UFO activity, in 1997, there was a mass UFO sighting. Thousands of people testified to seeing a large V-shaped UFO hovering above Tucson, Arizona. What's interesting and almost incredible about this is that each person who testified seeing this UFO, their testimony was very consistent or on point with another person's. And what's even more crazy is that the sighting went from the Nevada line all the way through Phoenix off to the edge of Tucson. And every person along that path where the UFO hovered, they all reported consistently seeing the same thing. Now, the military tried to pass this as flare test, of course. And the next day, the governor of Arizona went as far as to mock the people who had bared witness to this UFO by holding a press conference discussing the incident and then introducing a man in an alien suit saying that he had caught the culprit. However, in 2007, that very governor finally came out and confessed that he actually witnessed the UFO as well. He even went as far as calling local military bases to see if there was some sort of exercise going on so he could tell the public and, you know, make everybody feel at ease. But he never got any satisfied answers, and he was given the same excuses. Now, he also claimed that he was a pilot, and when he saw the UFO, he said he had never seen anything like it before. And given the excuse given to him by the military, he knew that it was not anything that the military would have or had access to. He said it was otherworldly. He said it hovered and made no noise. Same thing that everybody else reported. So look up the Phoenix Lights. Let me know what you think when you hear the story. It is one of my most favorite UFO sighting stories. I think it's probably the best one in the history of UFO sightings, simply because so many people claim to see it and they all describe the exact same thing. Well, guys, there you have it. UFOs, they're fun to talk about. I find reading about them and watching footage entertaining. Of course, you need to try and make sure you can peel the fake from the ones that are closer to being real. We never really know the answer. I mean, UFOs stand for unidentified flying object, as you know. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if you see a UFO that it's alien related. It could very well be a secret government project, or who knows, maybe another country using a new device that they have spying on us. But nonetheless, it is a phenomenon that is exciting to some who have seen it, and others get really scared. I've never seen one. I would love to experience it. I don't know how I would react, but I'd have to say I'd probably be a little bit down the middle on both sides. What about you? Have you ever seen a UFO? How did it make you feel? Or if you haven't seen one, how do you think you would react if you saw one? Until next week, this is Fringe Entertainment with Rob. I am signing off. Have a good weekend. And if there's any kind of topic you want me to cover in the Fringe section of the Entertainment Talk Nation channel, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to cover it. Until next week, this is Rob signing off for E.T.N, where we don't do news, we just talk entertainment. Take it easy.
Thank you for watching E.T.N. Don't forget to subscribe and join the Nation Facebook page.